Alright guys, Mystery School back again. So we're talking about the black pill today. What is the black pill? This is the infamous pill that no one seems to know what the hell it does, or what it even is, or what to do with it, or what it means. Or people do know what it means, I guess. Everybody has their own different interpretation of what it means, I guess. So we'll just go off our little slideshow here. So, what is the black pill here? So the black pill is cited mostly in info forums, like brain cells, God rest his soul, on Reddit. The mantra of the black pill is that it never fucking began, boyo. I'm sorry, it never even began, boyo. That's what it actually says on the screen, but whatever. The black pill, the most objective, is that it is available to human knowledge at the time, which means that this pill is subject to change when human scientific knowledge becomes more broad and changes over time. It basically borders on a scientific fact. The black pill is a rejection of free will and is deterministic. So what is determinism? What I've already defined this before, I think in the red pill video, but I'll do it here again. The doctrine that all events, including human action, are ultimately determined by causes external to the will. So in a nutshell, this is cause and effect. As we go through the video, we'll talk through some thought experiments and figure out what we're talking about here. So I would extend this definition up here. It says external to the will. I would even include the will as being deterministic too. Your will is a byproduct of things outside of your control. Your will comes from genetic and environmental factors that you have zero control over that shape you to being the person that you are today. And it's basically the idea that you can make a choice, but that choice isn't free. Now, I prefer the word action over choice, but you're gonna hear me using the word choice a lot just for the sake of argument and just so people understand what I'm talking about. So determinism and the black pill. It never even began, boyo. It's more than just a meme. It's the idea that from conception, your life was already bound to either be great or shit. Your biology or genetics and environment are all have a massive effect on where you will end up in life. Now keep in mind your environment includes people. So people are part of your environment too. So we have our first thought experiment here. This is just going to be basic deterministic thought experiment here. So let's start with the basic example of a ball rolling down a hill. The ball is pushed down the hill and begins rolling. The ball hits a rock, pops up into the air, and then veers right. The ball reaches the bottom of the hill. So A to D. How does the ball start at A being pushed to getting down to D, the bottom of the hill? Well, if the story tells you, but what does it mean? We're asking questions here. How did the ball get to the bottom of the hill? Why did it pop into the air when it hit the rock? Why did it reach that particular spot at the bottom of the hill? Well, it was pushed with a certain amount of force, which led it to roll. So it started rolling on the hill. Gravity, acceleration, speed, velocity, the air in the environment, the grass on the ground, the curvature of the hill, the weight of the ball, as well as a host of almost unlimited factors, all determine how fast the ball will roll down the hill. When the ball hits the rock, it pops up into the air because of the factors described in the previous sentence. So all those factors previously also had an effect on how that ball would hit that rock and veer right. The laws of physics are driving this ball to its destination at the bottom of the hill. So a question I have for you to consider as of right now is, if you had a machine that could measure physical reality perfectly, could you predict where this ball would land? So could you predict the exact spot at the bottom of the hill at D where this ball would be at? Just consider it. So determinism thought experiment 2. So let's look at people now. So most people would agree that an object like a ball would behave in such a way, but what about people? So let's look at the definition of an object. An object, there's two definitions here I picked, is a material thing that can be seen and touched. Humans fit this definition here. Material, we're made up of matter and material. This is what we're made up of. So it's material that can be seen and touched. The second definition is an object, of an object is a person or thing to which a specified action or feeling is directed. So it kind of gives you a new definition, when women talk about not being sexual objects. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, according to men, they kind of are. Like, they're, I hate to use the word designed, but like, they turn us on for us. And then for women, men are status objects and sexual objects and various other objects that men are. So it goes both ways when it comes to this object debate thing. But let's keep going. So people are made up of atoms, bosons, subatomic particles, etc., and thereby subject to the laws of physics too. The one we'll focus on mostly is the idea of cause and effect. So we're going to use our thought experiment here. It's going to be a baby learning how to talk. So before this kid can even be taught to talk, he must be born. And before he's born, his parents must meet. For all intents and purposes, let's say that the kid's parents have already met and that he is born in America, which speaks English. Let's also assume that he already has a brain and body that has developed far enough to learn the language. These factors establish our starting point A. But keep in mind that this starting point is for intents and purposes and not the real starting point. There are factors beyond A that led us here, but we don't have enough time to go over all the factors. It's just too fucking much. So we're just going to say that these factors here, we can establish some of these factors and say, we're starting off here at A, with these factors in mind. The parent, but now that we've established starting point A, the parents will begin teaching their child words. Most parents choose mom and dad, or mommy and daddy, as being the words that they say to their child and repeat over and over again to get their child to mock or to respond or to mimic them in order to get them to say their first word. The parents repeat the word mommy and daddy or mom or dad over and over again until the child one day says the word, says the desired word. This is our B. So the child has now learned a word, and he said the word. Holy shit. So next, the child will be praised. This is positive reinforcement according to classical conditioning. So the child is now being conditioned to say more words. This is our C. So, at A, we have our starting factors here. B, we have, the first word said. Then we have C, where we have reinforcement in order to keep the child learning more words. So he keeps using more and more words in C. And then eventually we get to D. The end result is that the child learns to talk. He doesn't learn proper grammar yet. He's still, probably a toddler or a kid. But he can now speak to his parents using somewhat coherent sentences. I can barely talk myself, so I can't really knock the kid for not knowing how to talk at all. You're probably wondering what physical things happen in this experiment. For the ball, it's easy since everything is an item. Everything is an inanimate object. Our brains are physical objects which run off electrical signals, which are made up of matter, atoms, etc. Even without physical properties, the events preceding each other is an example of cause and effect or determinism. So A leads to B, which leads to C, which leads to D. This is what determinism is: cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. So determinism thought experiment 2 continued. So this chart looks like a fucking mess because it is a fucking mess. This is just a chart of possibilities and probabilities. So this chart, while not complete, is a more realistic view of how things happen. We are now in the realm of probability. The probability of an event happening depends on the factors preceding it. So if we change the factors that happen in A, theoretically the things that happen in B would change, and the things that happen in C would change, things that happen in D would change. Things become more probable when you change the factors, and more possibilities get opened up to us when we change the factors that precede the previous one, that precede the previous event. So, the probability of it happening depends on the factor preceding it. Let's use the same thought experiment, but throw in the fact that one parent also speaks Spanish. And we're going to say it's the mom, so her family speaks Spanish as well. So she has Spanish-speaking parents, and she speaks Spanish too. Well, this opens up the possibility of the child learning Spanish and being bilingual. This factor is now added to our starting point A. For all intents and purposes, our starting point A is exactly the same, except now we have a new factor that the mother knows Spanish. She's, Hispanic or something like that. Our B could now either be B1, which is he just learns English, or B2, where he becomes bilingual. Now, B3 is also available to us. B3 is his parents not teaching him any language at all. It's still available to us, but it's less probable than B1 or 2. It's less probable. It's possible, but it's less probable. But if we add more factors to it, it becomes more probable. So, but if I add a factor to A that says his parents are extremely neglectful, or perhaps they are illiterate themselves. So, this makes B3 more likely, more probable to happen. Depending on the events preceding it, like the ones of C's become available and then the N follows. So I only focus on A and B here just to get the point across about possibility and probability. The moment that we add new factors to A, things become more possible and things become more probable. But remember, just because something is possible doesn't mean that it's probable. So, determinism thought experiment 2 continued. Any event on the graph could be a new A. Like this graph, really, any event on this graph could be a new A, could be a starting point for something else. So A is obviously A. B2 could be an A. B2 could be a starting point for something else. And each one of these A's, each one of these points on this graph should have an infinite number of lines coming off it, leading to different possibilities and outcomes and stuff like that. It's almost eternal. It's almost goes on forever, theoretically. So any event on the graph could be a new event A. D1 is not the end of the story. D1 becomes the new A for another event. It's like the if-ought circle I drew in my last video. The chain could go on forever. It's a chain reaction of events. Each events ripple through time and no event stands independent of another event. While it might seem chaotic and random, it could probably be predicted by a powerful enough machine that if it could measure all factors in the universe. So here's our black pill thought experiment here. So we have our virgin here, our virgin walk friend here, our famous incel here. Everybody knows this picture, I hope so, with a graph next to him. Now this graph is going to be really irrelevant here, because I don't really use it here, but yeah, we have our virgin here, the virgin walk of shame, and his name is fucking Eugene, so he has the fucking incel name, he's an incel, got the virgin walk of shame, he's all here. So let's take a look at how an incel is made, and why their pill is the black pill. So let's call our incel Eugene. Poor guy. For all intents and purposes, our starting point is A. At A, it will be assumed that Eugene's parents have already met, they live in a lower middle class part of town, and are not the best looking people. Like a 4 or 3 out of 10. Somehow they fucking met, bumped uglies, and they made this poor fuck. Eugene is poor. Sorry, he is poor. Well, he is poor, but Eugene is born and lives in a safe, lives in the safety of his home. His formative years are relatively stable. Eugene is in high school, has experienced bullying throughout his entire life because of his looks. He's a 3 out of 10. He's ugly as sin. Because of his bullying, Eugene has low self-esteem and is a bit of a recluse. He feels like he can't talk to his parents about this problem because of the societal expectation that men don't complain, don't show emotion, yada yada yada. Due to Eugene's low self-esteem and learned helplessness, he makes it through high school with zero romantic or sexual experience, and really any real social experience either. He doesn't have any of this. He's also socially retarded. That's probably not the right word to use, but he's socially retarded effectively, due to being ostracized from group activities in school and not being liked by other kids. This is Eugene goes to college, and the same thing happens. He goes online for advice, he learns about the red pill, hypergamy, LMS, but none of it seems to work. So our poor incel guy here has no fucking hope. He's fucked. He's just walking down the fucking street with his virgin walk of shame. And whatever, dude, right? So let's analyze this story. Now I don't include all the factors here, but I do include some of the more important ones. So Eugene has bad genes from his parents. He ugly, yo. He just fucked. Alright? It's not fair. He has no control over this. Okay? I think we can all agree to that, right? His parents bumped uglies and here he fucking is, right? He's out. Okay, well he got the genes he got. It's like playing the fucking lottery. It's almost luck. It's luck based. This leads to him being bullied. He has no control over the other kids in the classroom. He has no control over what the teachers decide to do, whether or not they control the bullying or not. He has no control over any of the factors around him at this point. He's a kid. So this leads him to being bullied. Now you could say, well, he could fight back. Well, he's ugly as sin. He's the smallest kid in the class, and he has nothing going for him. What's the likelihood? Is it probable that someone like him is going to fight back with a bully? Plus, he's already been bullied to hell and back. Is he going to fight back? Probably not. Okay, he's been beaten down so far already. Well, he's not going to dig himself out of that hole anymore, is he? Keep in mind, once again, probable and possible. It's possible he could, but it's not probable. The bullying leads to low self-esteem, inferiority complexes, or complex, and learned helplessness. He's been conditioned by his classmates to behave this way, so no control. He has no control over what his brain does. I'm going to go over this. The lack of social skills, bad genes, various complexes, and psychological disorders lead him to the red pill and no sex. If all other factors are out of his control, then so is this. This follows. He has no control. He has zero control. So you might think what I'm describing here is a meat puppet, and on some level I am. He's effectively a man with strings attached to him, okay? He's a meat puppet. We're all meat puppets, though. Human beings are animals and respond to stimulus. Everything we are is a byproduct of our genetics and our environment. Psychological trauma leads to psychological disease. These diseases can be hereditary or learned. In the case of learned psychological diseases, depending on the age of the person, they cannot be unlearned. They can only be worked around. Mental trauma is physical trauma. When someone is conditioned into a state of learned helplessness, is it their fault that their brain responds to stimulus in such a way? Especially when this trauma is inflicted early on. Let's think about it. Is it? I don't know. You guys tell me in the comment section. Let's continue on with our analysis here. In the same way that Eugene has no control neither do his classmates. His classmates are a byproduct of their environment and genetics as well. This is why the black pill is the hardest to swallow. It removes the ability to hold people morally accountable. So accountability exists because it's based off the idea that you could have done otherwise. But if everything follows from your initial starting point and the universe is deterministic, then you could not have done otherwise. Which means that if we roll the clock back, if we could roll the clock back of our lives, and every single thing in the universe was exactly the same, so your brain's firing off in the exact same way, the air temperature in the room's the exact same way, the environment's the exact same way, your genes are exactly the same, everything in the world, everything in the universe, everything in the multiverse is exactly the same. You could roll back time. Could you have done otherwise? Does it follow? Well, if you say yes to that, you can only say yes to this if you insert new stimulus strong enough to fight back the determinism that's already there. That's the only way you can get out of this. If you insert something that's greater than what's already there, which would just be a new variable. It's still deterministic, but you inserted a new variable there. So it's all about adding variables. If you know anything about a function in math or calculus, you should know that a function can be anything, including a human being. Human beings are inputs and outputs. Garbage in, garbage out. We've all heard this phrase before. Chad's success is unearned, and the incel failure is also unearned. All success is unearned, and all failure is unearned. I'm not sure if this is in the Bible or not, but I'm not a Christian, but there's this phrase that you might have heard. It says, all glory belongs to God. Well, if all glory belongs to God, and God's the creator of everything, well, then so does all the bullshit too. All the bad stuff belongs to God too. But, if there's no God, well, you can't blame it on anybody. And this is what makes the black pill so fucking depressing to know about, to fully accept. Most of you probably won't accept this because it's too hard to accept. The fact that things just happen. Events just happen. Everything that we do after the fact about moralizing the situation and trying to figure out reasons why is post hoc rationalization. We're doing post hoc reasoning. Okay? We're looking at a thing and we're saying X happened and then we're just responding to it. We're meat puppets. This is what we are. We're meat puppets. We're effectively slaves to our biology and our environment. That's all we are. So at the end of the day, the black pill is simply observing objective reality for what it is. Whether it leads to despair or acceptance isn't up to you to choose. It isn't up to you should you choose to take the black pill. So keep in mind that for all intents and purposes, we have free will. Like society is going to treat you as if you have free will. And you will be held responsible for your actions. In fact, the Supreme Court has even said that free will is the basis for our laws in America. So this shit ain't gonna fly in court. You can't just walk into the courthouse and shoot 6 people and say, "Yo, dog, I'm good, right?" Because determinism and free will and yada yada. Nah, dude, you're going to fucking jail. Okay, good luck, dude. So in the same way that God established himself in the Bible with the bottom phrase, axiomatically, I am who I am. This is an axiom. It stands on its own. I am who I am. It's circular reasoning. Well, the black pill can be established using the above stated axiom too. It is what it is. Okay? It literally is what it is. The universe is what it is. Events happen, things precede it, things happen, things precede it again. The universe is what it is. Accept it or reject it. Pick one, dog. If you reject it, then go back to fucking Copeland and keep fucking coping and do what the fuck you want and telling people just to lift brah. Okay? Or you can accept the fact that we live in a deterministic universe and just accept it, dog. Pick one. It is what it is, but what ought we do with this information? I don't know. This is a question I'm posing to you guys. What ought we do if you accept the idea that the universe is deterministic? So some thoughts to consider, or some thought experiments I want you guys to think about. Maybe if you want to come back here and talk to me or some shit like that, that'd be cool. But whether you believe in God or not, the universe had a beginning. Due to the deterministic nature of reality, assuming you accept this idea of determinism, and the knock-on effect that events have that lead to other events, was Eugene fucked from the very beginning of time? If the beginning happens and everything flies off, like all the particles fly out the universe and they all bump to one another. Well, if we had a machine that could calculate that, this is basically the next question here. Can we predict the future with a machine that can measure all variables in the universe? This is the thought experiment Laplace's demon. If you haven't heard it before, look it up. It's a very, very common one. Basically, if you had a machine that can measure this, measure all the variables in the universe, could you figure out that, oh, Eugene's going to be fucked in the next 2 million years or 3 billion years past the beginning of time? I don't know. You probably could. So, in a quote in the end. So, I'm not sure if is this the Sam Harris's quote or if he just stole from somebody else, but I like the quote. A puppet is free as long as it loves its strings. The difference between Chad and the incel is that Chad loves his strings and the incel doesn't. Either way, both didn't choose those strings. So, at the end of the day, whether you guys accept this shit or not, it's up to you. I didn't really include a lot about dating in here, because the black pill oftentimes gets applied to like women and shit like that, and I feel like it wasn't worth going into that crap too much. But it applies to women too. If men can't control their actions, neither can women. Women are just responding to their environment, responding to stimulus. You change the stimulus, you change the environment, you get better outcomes, or you could get a better outcome. Let's also say it that way. You get a better outcome. Right now, the environment's kind of shit, so we'll have to figure it out one day, or figure it out together, or we're all just gonna die, right? So please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment if you like this video or not. Hope it was a good video. I hope I don't sound as like rambly as it did in the last few videos I had. I don't know. Just remember, guys, it never fucking began, boyo, and it never began, boyo. It's never fucking began. It's over, boyo.